Your eyes may be showing more than how well you can see. A new 2026 study suggests that a photograph of the retina can reveal clues about how fast the rest of the body is aging. Researchers trained an AI model on retinal images from more than 71,000 people and found that it could estimate chronological age with an average error of just 2.85 years. But the most interesting result came when the AI got someone's age wrong. If a person's retina looked older than their actual age, that retinal age gap was associated with worse cardiometabolic health, more inflammation, poorer cognitive performance, and higher risks of all-cause mortality, dementia, cancer, and future cardiovascular disease. That sounds almost unbelievable at first. How could the back of the eye contain information about the brain, heart, metabolism, and even survival? The answer is that the retina is not just a camera sensor for vision. It is highly vascularized neural tissue. Its blood vessels are among the few places in the body where doctors can directly observe the microcirculation without surgery. The retina also shares developmental and biological features with the central nervous system. Changes in vessels, nerves, metabolism, inflammation, and tissue structure can therefore leave visible patterns in the eye. The study, published in Nature Communications on August 26, 2026, used retinal fundus photographs from 71,343 participants in the UK Biobank. The researchers fine-tuned a foundation model called RET, found to predict chronological age directly from color retinal images. A fundus photograph is the type of image an eye clinic can take in seconds, showing the retina, optic disc, blood vessels, and surrounding structures. The model reached a mean absolute error of 2.85 years, meaning its predicted age was typically within roughly 3 years of the person's real age. But predicting birthdays was only the first step. The researchers calculated something called the retinal age gap. Imagine a person is 60 years old, but the AI says their retina looks 67. Their retinal age gap would be about +7 years. If the model says the retina looks 55, the gap would be -5. The crucial question was whether that difference reflected anything meaningful about health. It did. An older-looking retina was associated with a broad range of aging-related traits and outcomes. The retinal age gap tracked cardiometabolic characteristics, inflammation, and cognitive performance. It was also associated with all-cause mortality, dementia, cancer, and incident cardiovascular disease, even beyond chronological age. In other words, two people could have the same birthday, but the person whose retina looked older could carry a different pattern of future health risk. This is where the idea becomes much more important than an AI trick. Chronological age is one of the strongest risk factors in medicine, but it is also extremely crude. Two 65-year-olds can have completely different levels of vascular damage, inflammation, cognitive reserve, metabolic health, and disease risk. Doctors already know this. The problem is measuring those differences cheaply and repeatedly. Many biological age tests require blood DNA methylation, protein measurements, or advanced imaging. A retinal photograph is different. It is fast, non-invasive, and already widely used in eye care. If retinal age can eventually be validated as a reliable health marker, a picture that takes seconds could provide information about biological aging without taking a blood sample. But here is the surprising part. The retina did not appear to age in exactly the same way in men and women. The AI predicted age with similar overall accuracy in both sexes, but the biological signals behind those predictions differed. In men, an older retinal age showed stronger links with metabolic syndrome-related traits. In women, both the model's attention patterns and genetic analyses pointed more strongly toward the retinal vasculature. That means the model may have been looking at different features depending on sex. This is important because aging research often tries to produce one universal biological age score. But men and women do not experience every aging process identically. Hormones, body fat distribution, cardiovascular risk, immune biology, and vascular changes can differ across the lifespan. A single number can hide those biological distinctions. The female results became even more interesting around menopause. The researchers found that retinal aging patterns changed across the menopausal transition. Postmenopausal women had higher retinal age gaps, and their clinical associations became more similar to those observed in men. That does not mean menopause suddenly makes the retina old, nor does it prove that hormonal changes directly cause the age gap. But it fits with something already well established in medicine. Menopause is a major physiological transition that affects metabolism, vascular biology, and cardiovascular risk. The eye may be recording part of that transition. Think of the retina as a tiny biological window. Every day, its vessels experience the same circulating glucose, lipids, inflammatory signals, blood pressure, hormones, and metabolic environment as the rest of the body. Over decades, those exposures can leave structural traces. A deep learning model does not need to understand each trace the way a doctor does. It can detect thousands of subtle visual combinations and learn which patterns tend to appear at different ages. The researchers also performed genome-wide analyses. Genetic signals connected with retinal aging involved pathways related to longevity, metabolism, neurodegeneration, and age-related eye diseases. That makes the retinal age gap more interesting than a purely photographic pattern. It suggests the AI may be capturing biology tied to broader aging mechanisms, rather than only cosmetic differences in the eye. Still, this is exactly where caution is needed. The study does not show that an eye photograph can diagnose dementia, cancer, or future heart disease by itself. An association with future disease risk is not the same as a clinical diagnostic test. The model was developed largely using UK biobank data, and people in large volunteer biobanks are not perfectly representative of every population. AI systems can also behave differently when images come from different cameras, clinics, ethnic groups, or health systems. External validation will therefore matter enormously. There is also the problem of causality. If someone's retina looks biologically older, that could reflect years of smoking, hypertension, diabetes, inflammation, poor metabolic health, or genetic risk. The retina may be acting as a recorder of those exposures, rather than independently driving disease. That is not a weakness if the goal is risk prediction. A thermometer does not cause a fever, but it can still tell you something important. The same could eventually be true for retinal age. Another limitation is that an older retinal age gap does not yet tell someone what to do differently. Suppose an AI says your retina appears 6 years older than expected. What should happen next? Should a doctor check blood pressure, glucose, cholesterol, cognitive function, cardiovascular risk? Should the eye be re-imaged after lifestyle changes? Those clinical pathways have not been established. This is the same challenge facing many biological age tests. A score is only useful if it improves decisions. If knowing the score does not change treatment or improve outcomes, it may create anxiety without much benefit. But retinal imaging has one major advantage. It is already part of routine medicine. Millions of people with diabetes, retinal disease, or age-related eye conditions receive fundus photography. In principle, the same image could someday provide an additional layer of systemic health information without requiring another procedure. Imagine an eye exam where the doctor does not only look for diabetic retinopathy or macular degeneration. Software could also estimate whether the retinal tissue looks unusually old for your age. If it does, that might trigger a closer look at cardiovascular or metabolic risk. That future is still speculative, but the underlying idea is powerful. The body's systems do not age in isolation. Blood vessels in the eye are exposed to the same circulation as vessels in the heart and brain. Neural tissue in the retina shares biology with the nervous system. Metabolic disease affects both large organs and tiny microvascular networks. Aging leaves patterns everywhere. The retina may simply be one of the easiest places to see them. There is another important lesson here about AI in medicine. The most valuable use of AI may not be replacing doctors. It may be extracting information from ordinary tests that humans cannot easily see. A retinal image was already useful before this study. An ophthalmologist could examine it for eye disease. The AI adds a different question. What hidden systemic information might be embedded inside the same picture? That approach could make existing medical tests much more valuable. An ECG might contain information about biological age. A chest X-ray might reveal cardiovascular risk beyond obvious disease. A voice recording might contain signals of neurological decline, and a retinal photograph may contain a compressed history of vascular, metabolic, and neural aging. The important result from this study is therefore not simply that AI guessed age within 3 years. The real result is what happened when the estimate differed from the calendar. An older-looking retina was linked with inflammation, poorer cognitive performance, mortality, dementia, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. The eye seemed to carry a broader signal of systemic aging. For now, nobody should interpret a consumer retinal age score as a diagnosis or a prediction of how long they will live. But if future studies confirm these findings across more populations and show that retinal age improves clinical decisions, one of the simplest biological aging tests may already exist. It may not require DNA sequencing. It may not require an expensive blood panel. It may only require looking into your eyes.